Chapter 1. I stormed into Colton's office, barely restraining the urge to throw something at his stupid, smug face. "You're loving this, aren't you?" I snapped. Colton leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, looking entirely too pleased with himself. "I mean, yeah, this is hilarious." I glared. "What exactly am I supposed to be doing here?" He shrugged. "You're my assistant. You assist." I clenched my fists. "I swear to everything good in this world, if you make me fetch coffee, I will pour it on your head." Colton grinned. "Feisty. I like it." I groaned, rubbing my temples. "I hate you." "That's a strong word." "Right," he said, standing up and strolling around his desk, like he wasn't actively ruining my life. "Besides, we're adults now. Shouldn't we let go of the past?" I snorted. "You pushed me into a lake when we were 12. He laughed. "That was funny." I gritted my teeth. "You replaced my shampoo with honey in high school." "Okay, I'll admit, that one was genius." I threw my hands up. "You see why I hate you?" Colton placed a hand over his heart. "Hate is such an ugly word, right?" I gave him a deadpan stare. "Fine. I strongly dislike you." He winked. "Better." I wanted to strangle him. Instead, I took a deep breath. "Professionalism, Amelia. You can do this." "So," I said through gritted teeth. "What's my first task, boss?" Colton smirked. "I have a meeting in 10 minutes. You're coming with me." I frowned. "Why?" "Because," he said, grabbing his suit jacket, "watching you suffer brings me joy." I groaned. This was going to be a nightmare, but there was no backing out now. I had two options. 1. Suffer through this job and somehow survive. Point 2. Kill Colton and go to jail. Honestly, option 2 was looking real tempting. Chapter 2. Colton walked infuriatingly slow as we made our way to the conference room, like he had all the time in the world. I, on the other hand, was power walking to keep up because he had longer legs and an ego problem. "Would it kill you to match my pace?" I grumbled. He glanced at me, smirking. "Would it kill you to wear higher heels?" I stomped harder. "Would it kill you to shut up?" His smirk grew wider. "Impossible." I sighed through my teeth and mentally added murder to my to-do list. We entered the conference room, where a group of executives was already seated. I took a deep breath, preparing to be professional, and then Colton, that absolute menace, pulled out the chair next to him and patted it. "Sit here, right," he said, like I was a puppy. I gave him a look. "I was going to sit there anyway." "Sure you were." He grinned. I sat down aggressively. The meeting started, and for the first 10 minutes, I managed to ignore him. But then I noticed something. Colton was watching me. I turned my head slightly. "What?" I whispered. He leaned closer, way too amused. "You take notes like a stressed-out college student." I glanced at my notepad. Okay, maybe my handwriting looked a little chaotic. But that was not the point. "Stop looking at my notes," I hissed. He grinned. "What if I need them later?" "You have a perfectly good brain," I snapped. "Use it." "Flattering." He winked. "You think my brain is perfect." I nearly threw my pen at his face. Instead, I forced myself to focus on the meeting while Colton very obviously enjoyed my suffering. By the time it ended, I was ready to explode. As we walked back to his office, I rounded on him. "Why do you love getting on my nerves?" Colton chuckled. "Because you make it so easy." I crossed my arms. "One day, karma is going to get you." He leaned against his desk, completely unbothered. "Maybe, but until then, I'll keep having fun." I groaned. "I loathe you." Colton tilted his head. "Is that what we're calling it now?" I froze. What did that mean? Before I could demand an explanation, he turned back to his computer like the conversation never happened. I left his office, heart pounding for no reason at all. Okay. That was weird. Chapter 3. By the next morning, I had convinced myself that Colton was not flirting. And oh, absolutely not. He was annoying. That was his default setting. And yet, "You're late," he said the second I walked into his office. I frowned. "It's 8:59 a.m. He smirked. "Exactly." I gritted my teeth. "Do not commit workplace violence." "Do not commit workplace violence." Instead, I dropped my bag onto the nearest chair. "What's on the schedule today, boss?" Colton leaned back in his chair, watching me with an infuriatingly amused expression. "We have a meeting with a potential client in an hour." "Great," I said, pulling out my notebook. "Anything I should prepare?" Colton tapped his fingers against his desk. "Yeah, try not to look like you want to stab me." I smiled sweetly. "I make no promises." He chuckled, then stood up and walked over to me. And suddenly, he was too close. "Your hair's a mess," he murmured, reaching out. Before I could react, his fingers brushed my forehead as he tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. I froze. What was happening? Was this normal boss behavior? No, was I malfunctioning? Absolutely. Colton stepped back like nothing happened, but the stupid smirk on his face told me he knew exactly what he was doing. I narrowed my eyes. "Are you messing with me?" His smirk widened. "Wouldn't you like to know?" I wanted to scream, but instead, I grabbed my notebook and stormed out before my face could betray the fact that I was freaking out, because the worst part, for a split second, I didn't hate it, and that was very, very dangerous. Chapter 4. I spent the rest of the morning convincing myself that Colton's little hair-tucking stunt meant nothing. IT was not flirting. It was not anything. He was messing with me, like he always did. And I was not going to let it get to me. So when we arrived at the client meeting, I was determined to be professional. That lasted exactly 5 minutes, because when we sat down, Colton leaned in close and whispered, "You smell nice." I choked on my own breath. The client blinked at me. "Are you okay?" I kicked Colton under the table and forced a smile. "Yep, perfectly fine." Colton bit back a grin, like he knew exactly what he was doing. I turned my focus to the meeting, but every time I tried to concentrate, I could feel Colton's stupid presence next to me, radiating smugness. And then, halfway through, he casually rested his hand on my knee under the table. I jumped so hard my pen flew out of my hand. The client stared at me again. Colton, the absolute devil, just sipped his coffee like he hadn't just put his hand on my leg in the middle of a business meeting. I snatched my pen off the table, ignoring the way my pulse had skyrocketed. I was going to murder him or kiss him. Honestly, it could go either way at this point. When the meeting finally ended, I stormed out of the room. But Colton grabbed my wrist and pulled me into an empty hallway. I gasped. "What is your problem?" He grinned. "You." I glared. "You were touching me during the meeting." He leaned in, way too close. And I shoved his chest. "You're messing with me." He caught my wrist effortlessly, eyes gleaming. "What if I'm not?" I froze, because for the first time, I wasn't sure if he was joking. His grip on my wrist was gentle, his eyes dark with something dangerous, and before I could process anything, he let go, smirked, and said, "See you in my office, right?" Then he walked away, completely unaffected, while I stood there, questioning my entire existence. Chapter 5. I stomped back to Colton's office, fully prepared to yell at him, when I remembered something very important. I needed this job. I needed this job. I needed this. "I can hear you panicking from here," Colton called from his desk. I groaned. "I am not panicking." He spun his chair to face me, looking entirely too relaxed. "No." I crossed my arms. "No, good," he said, standing up. "Because we have a problem." I narrowed my eyes. "What problem?" He walked over, stepping way too close, and tilted his head. "We have chemistry," he said, like it was an actual problem. I blinked at him. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me." I stared. "Colton, you have spent the last decade ruining my life." He grinned. "And yet, here we are." Here we were, indeed. Too close. Too tense. Something my brain screamed professionalism, but my body remembered the way he had touched me earlier, how his grip had been firm but gentle, how he had looked at me like. I shook my head violently. "Nope, we're not doing this." Colton smirked. "Doing what?" I pointed at him. "Whatever this is." He took another step forward. "Are you sure?" "Yes, absolutely. 100%. Colton brushed my hair over my shoulder, his fingers grazing my neck, and my breath hitched. I wasn't sure of anything anymore. His smirk softened into something dangerous. "You're blushing, right?" I snapped back into reality. "No, I'm not." "You are," he murmured, tracing a finger down my arm. "It's cute." I shoved his hand away. "Oh my God, stop." He laughed, stepping back with his hands raised in surrender. "Fine, I'll be good." Doubtful, I muttered. He just winked. "See you tomorrow, assistant." I turned on my heel and walked out of there like my life depended on it, because if I stayed any longer, I wasn't sure who would kiss who first, and that was very, very dangerous. Chapter 6. I had a plan when I walked into work the next morning. Point 1. Avoid Colton. Point 2. Be professional. Point 3. Forget that last night ever happened. IT was a great plan. Flawless. Foolproof, until Colton walked in, grabbed my waist, and kissed me like it was a normal Tuesday morning. I died. His hands were warm and firm, holding me in place like he had been waiting for this moment forever. His lips were soft but demanding, teasing, coaxing, and I kissed him back, like an idiot, like an absolute fool with no sense of self-preservation. I grabbed his shirt, yanked him closer, and let him consume me. And then, reality smacked me in the face. I pulled back so fast I nearly gave myself whiplash. Colton looked way too pleased with himself. "Morning, right?" I slapped a hand over my traitorous mouth. "What the hell just happened?" He tilted his head. "You kissed me." I pointed an accusing finger at him. "You kissed me." He grinned. "And you kissed back." I glared. That was a reflex. A very enthusiastic reflex. I wanted to die. Right there. In his office. Instead, I turned violently and marched to the door. "I'm pretending this never happened." "Sure," Colton said, sounding infuriatingly unconvinced. I threw open the door and froze, because standing right there, looking very entertained, was my father. Oh no. I slammed the door shut again, pressing my forehead against it. Colton chuckled behind me. "So, do we tell him, or do we let him figure it out?" I was going to jump out the window. I turned around slowly. "You shut up." Colton smirked. "Not a chance." Outside, my dad knocked on the door. "Why is the door locked?" I stared at Colton, panicking, and he just leaned in, kissed the corner of my mouth, and whispered, "Good luck, sweetheart." I was going to murder him right after I survived my father. Chapter 7. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and opened the door like I wasn't just making out with my boss 2 seconds ago. "Hey, Dad," I said, way too cheerfully. Dad narrowed his eyes. "Why was the door locked?" "Oh, you know." I laughed nervously. "Security reasons?" Colton, the actual devil, stepped beside me, completely unbothered. I needed a private discussion with my assistant. I elbowed him. Hard. Dad's eyes flickered between us, his expression turning suspiciously unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. "Right." I swallowed. "So, what brings you here?" "Came to check on things," Dad said, stepping inside. "Make sure you're still doing actual work and not causing problems." Colton smirked. "Oh, she's definitely causing problems." I kicked his foot. Dad's eyes narrowed further. "All right," he said, crossing his arms. "What's going on?" I panicked. "Hard. Nothing." I blurted. Colton, the absolute menace, casually leaned against his desk. We kissed. I choked on air. Dad went completely still. My soul left my body. "You what?" Dad said dangerously. Colton nodded calmly, as if he hadn't just signed his own death certificate. Kissed. Made out. Got a little carried away. I was going to kill him. Dad's jaw ticked. "You got carried away with my daughter?" Colton smiled. "She started it." "Colton." Dad turned to me. "You started it?" I grabbed my bag. "Okay, this has been fun, but I have a meeting. Bye." I bolted for the door, but my dad's voice stopped me cold. "We'll talk about this later," he said. I groaned internally. Colton, he just winked at me, and I knew, without a doubt, that this was just the beginning of my suffering. Chapter 8. I avoided my father all day. Like, full-on hid behind furniture, took the long way around the office, and pretended to be on important phone calls every time I saw him. IT was a solid plan until Colton ruined everything, right? He called out across the office way too loudly, "Your dad's looking for you." I froze mid-step. Dad turned the corner, immediately spotting me. I gasped in betrayal and whipped around to glare at Colton. He just smirked. Smug. Amused. Evil.my Dad marched over. "Amelia." My office. "Now." I shot Colton a murderous look as I walked past him. "You're dead to me." He grinned. "See you soon, sweetheart." I hated him. I walked into my dad's office and sat down as innocently as possible. Dad closed the door and stared at me in silence. The tension was thick. Finally, he sighed. "Amelia. Of all the men in the world. Colton Elliott." I winced. "I can explain." He crossed his arms. "You better." I fumbled for words. "It just happened?" He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Please tell me you're not serious about him." I hesitated because, well, I didn't know. Dad's eyes narrowed. "Oh God, you like him?" I groaned. "No, I don't." "You do." "I don't." He exhaled sharply. "Amelia, listen to me." Colton is a knock on the door interrupted him. We both turned as the door swung open, and there, standing with zero shame, was Colton himself. "Sir," he greeted my father with a polite nod, then turned to me with a devastating smirk. "You forgot your phone on my desk." I blinked. Colton walked over, handed me the phone, and, because he was a terrible human being, brushed his fingers down my arm as he pulled away. I swallowed my Dad noticed everything. Colton winked at me, turned to my father, and casually said, "By the way, sir, I'd like to take Amelia to dinner." Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Terrifying. Then my father smiled. IT was the kind of smile that made grown men run for their lives. I gasped in horror. Colton grinned like an idiot. Oh my God. I was so dead. Chapter 9. I sat at the restaurant table, trapped between two men who were definitely going to kill each other before dessert. On my left, Colton, looking completely relaxed like this wasn't a terrible idea. On my right, my father, who had made it his life's mission to intimidate Colton into an early grave. And me, I was suffering. The waiter had barely placed the menus down before Dad leaned forward and said, "So, Colton, you think you're good enough for my daughter?" I choked on my water. Colton, the insufferable human that he was, just smirked. "Absolutely." Dad raised an eyebrow. That was quick. Colton leaned back in his chair, unbothered. "I've known Amelia my whole life. I know exactly what I'm getting into." I kicked his foot under the table. He didn't even flinch. Dad narrowed his eyes. "Do you?" Colton nodded. "She's stubborn, reckless, and impossible to handle." I gasped. "Excuse me?" He turned to me with a teasing grin. "But also brilliant. Funny. Kind." I froze. Dad scoffed. "And you think that's enough?" Colton met my father's glare without hesitation. "More than enough." Silence. Thick. Charged. A battle of wills. Dad leaned back. "We'll see." Oh my God. They were going to fight right here over the breadbasket. I needed to stop this. I did what any mature adult would do. I picked up a fork and stabbed Colton's hand with it. He yelped, jerking back. "Jesus, right?" Dad grinned. "That's my girl." I groaned. This was going to be the longest dinner of my life. Chapter 10 dinner was a disaster. Not because my father and Colton were fighting. Oh, no, it was because they were enjoying it. Like two overgrown children who had turned my misery into some kind of sport. I stabbed my steak aggressively as they went back and forth. "I don't think you're serious about her," Dad said, swirling his wine like a villain in a movie. Colton smirked. "Oh, I'm very serious." I choked on my drink. Dad narrowed his eyes. "Serious enough to deal with me as a father-in-law?" I grabbed my napkin and started coughing violently. Colton, the lunatic, just chuckled. "Absolutely." Dad looked impressed. Impressed, I wanted to flip the table. Instead, I slammed my fork down. "Okay, I don't know what kind of twisted bonding experience this is, but I am not enjoying it." Dad smiled innocently. Just making sure this man can handle you, sweetheart. Colton winked. He has a point. You're a lot. I kicked him under the table. He didn't even flinch. Dad looked between us, then sighed. Fine. You two want to be idiots together? Go ahead. I blinked. That was it. Colton smirked. So, I have your blessing? Dad pointed a knife at him. I didn't say that. Colton grinned like a madman. Close enough. I dropped my head into my hands. I was surrounded by chaos. And the worst part? I think I liked it. Chapter 11, I paced around my apartment, aggressively munching on a stress cookie, because I had a problem. A big, terrifying, possibly life-ruining problem. I liked Colton. Really liked him. And not just in the I want to throw hands with him daily kind of way. And the I might actually have feelings like a total idiot kind of way. I groaned and flopped onto my couch. No. Nope. Not happening. My phone dinged. I grabbed it, already knowing who it was. Colton. Did you think about me before bed? Smirking face, I chucked my phone across the couch. Because yes, and that was exactly the problem. A second text came in. Colton, I know you did. I grabbed a pillow and screamed into it. Because the worst part, he was right. Chapter 12, I messed up. Badly. I should have just kept my big mouth shut. But no, I had to go and accidentally tell Colton I liked him. And now, he was having the time of his life. You like me, he said for the 7th time in the last 5 minutes, leaning back against his desk, smug as hell. I groaned into my hands. I take it back. Nope, he said, grinning like an idiot. It's already out there. You like me. I peeked between my fingers. I literally hate you. He shrugged. And yet, you just said, I lunged for him. He dodged, laughing, and I nearly tripped over a chair. You're not funny, I snapped. Flustered beyond reason, Colton smirked. Oh, I'm hilarious. You just admitted you like me. I glared. It was an accident. He leaned in, voice dangerously low. So you didn't mean it? I opened my mouth, then closed it, because the truth, I did. Colton's smirk softened into something more serious. Amelia. I swallowed. What? He lifted my chin with his fingers, forcing me to look at him. Just admit it. I scoffed. You already know. His eyes darkened. Yeah, but I want to hear you say it. I inhaled, heartbeat out of control. Then I did the only thing that would shut him up. I grabbed his stupid face and kissed him. And just like that, I was done for. Chapter 13, Colton and I were dating now, which was great. Except for one tiny issue. My dad had no idea, and based on how he almost murdered Colton over a dinner date, I figured I should probably break the news gently, naturally. I did the exact opposite. I blurted it out at breakfast. Dad was mid-sip of his coffee when I said, oh, by the way, Colton and I are together now. He froze. I froze. The entire world froze. Then, very calmly, he set his mug down and said, I'm sorry, what? I swallowed. We're together. Officially. Silence. Then he laughed. Oh no. Not the haha this is funny kind of laugh. The I'm about to ruin someone's life kind of laugh. Interesting, Dad finally said, standing up. I just remembered I have something to do. I squinted at him. What are you? The front door slammed shut before I could finish. I gasped in horror. I knew exactly where he was going. Find Colton. I grabbed my phone and dialed. The second he answered, I yelled, run. Colton just laughed. Let him come. Oh my God, they were both insane, and now I was stuck in the middle of it. Epilogue, my dad finally accepts Colton. After making his life a living hell, it took 6 months, 6 long months, of my dad torturing Colton every chance he got. Fake emergencies, surprise background checks, a mandatory man-to-man. Camping trip where Colton almost got eaten by a bear. It was relentless. But Colton, he never backed down. And somehow, through all the chaos, he and my dad went from rivals to whatever they were now. You know, Dad said. Arms crossed as he watched Colton fix the fence in our backyard, shirt off, sweat glistening. Not that I noticed, okay? Fine. I noticed. He's not so bad, Dad finally admitted. I blinked in shock. I'm sorry, what? Dad sighed, reluctantly. I said, he's not so bad. Colton smirked from across the yard. You like me now, don't you? Dad scowled. Don't push it. Colton grinned. Too late. I rolled my eyes. You two are ridiculous. But secretly, I kind of loved it because somehow, through all the chaos, fighting, and near-death experiences, I got everything I never knew I wanted. Colton, my dad finally approving, and a life that was never boring, not even a little bit.
Colton's POV survived. Barely 0.6 months of pure hell, courtesy of Amelia's father. The man tried everything to scare me off. Background checks, surprise interrogations, a camping trip where I almost got mauled by a bear. You name it, he did it. But I wasn't going anywhere. And now, he was finally admitting defeat. You know, he said, watching me fix the damn fence he, accidentally, broke just to give me more work. You're not the worst guy my daughter could have ended up with. I wiped sweat off my forehead, grinning. That almost sounded like a compliment. He scowled. Don't get used to it. From the porch, Amelia snorted. Just say you like him, Dad. He glared at her. I will do no such thing. I chuckled, walking over to her and pulling her against me. It's okay. I know the truth. Amelia rolled her eyes, but I caught the small smile she tried to hide. Yet I'd been through hell for this girl, and I'd do it all over again, because she was worth it, and no amount of meddling dads, surprise background checks, or near-death camping trips was ever going to change that. The end.